Hello everyone and welcome to a new video from Your Overwatch. I'm Eddie the Chump and today we'll be talking about McCree. Specifically, we'll be talking about the community's perception of McCree and his supposed weakness. In this era, dive tanks, zippy flankers and other movement-based heroes are all the rage. It takes just a cursory glance at a top-level match from OGN's Apex to notice that. It's not to say he doesn't get use at the pro level, he does, but to a large extent meta shifts around McCree have made more self-sufficient hit scans like Soldier become more prominent. It's not so much that McCree has ever been bad. The same could be said of Reinhardt at the pro level. Rein isn't bad by any stretch, it's just that one of the most dominant styles of play ignores his strengths. If people are playing double flanker or even worse triple DPS like Rogue do often, Rein can be left in a difficult spot, not being able to shield all the angles of attack. That change alone, the drop in Rein pick rate, has affected McCree. So it's not that McCree is bad. Can he still delete 200 health targets in 1 second? Yes he can. But can he create those looks for himself? Can he survive in the rapid pace of a dive meta teamfight with very limited evade or movement mechanics? That's the question that some of the best McCrees in the world like Taimu on Envy are trying to answer. Now I bring the pro scene into the conversation for two reasons. Firstly, if you ever want to see what a hero is actually capable of, looking to the best players in the world is often a good place to start. And secondly, how big personalities, be they pro players or big streamers, feel about a hero does in part inform how a lot of the community thinks about that hero. It trickles down. When they see former exceptional McCrees like AKM playing Soldier for their pro team, it can start to make an impression. So for a while now, people have looked at McCree and thought him weak, or weaker than Soldier certainly, who at a much lower mechanical cost from the player, especially in matchmaking, can output a tremendous amount of damage. Soldier can heal himself, he can evade better with sprint, and he has a Helix rocket on short cooldown which can provide for a great burst of damage with relative ease, especially when compared to a McCree headshot. In truly skilled hands, he can start to rival the time to kill that an amazing McCree can. It's not the 1 second deletion that a double tap from McCree can do, but watch AKM use him and it's approaching a very swift time to kill indeed. Obviously, despite the volume of damage, it is still sustained. Heroes like McCree will always have that on him, but it's a question of practicality. Soldier isn't better, but he works well in comps where everyone is taking contact at different angles all the time, as he can set up on an off angle and then reset when he's pressured. McCree needs much more protecting and setting up, which when your team is being attacked from seemingly endless angles can be a very difficult thing to achieve. So what with all of this being the case, it's natural for the community to want to see a popular hero changed if they see him as weak. There's a great Reddit post by the user HasHack from a few days ago. I'll put it on screen and I'll link it in the description. What HasHack outlines is very interesting. Instead of a straight buff to damage or damage range fall-off adjustments, their idea is to give McCree a passive ability. So in a lore-respectful and cute detail, the passive would be called Bounty, and it essentially boils down to McCree being able to see an enemy who is on fire through walls, in a similar fashion to how Sombra can see enemies on low health with Opportunist. So what that could potentially mean is that Pharah, who's raining down free damage on your team and doing exceptionally well, would be visible to you through walls, allowing you to ISO her much more efficiently. Now on the surface, this is a really smart idea. McCree is a duelist, right? If we can't buff him directly, which we'll get to in a minute, then giving him something to isolate dangerous targets and dispense justice makes for an entertaining option. Now I want to commend the creativity of HasHack. It's an answer that is in a lot of ways original, at least for McCree. However, there's a few practical issues. Firstly, more than one enemy can be on fire at a time, so does that mean McCree would have multiple targets that he can see through walls? Is it reasonable to have a hero with that kind of advantage over you and you not know? Sure, the game tells you when you're on fire, but it can be easily missed. It's not reliable, not for McCree or the opponent. Similar abilities like Widow's Sights and Hanzo's Recon Arrow are much more limited. One is an ultimate, and Recon Arrow has an incredibly long cooldown. How long would Bounty last? Until they fell out of being on fire? So would that slow down games as people waited to engage so they weren't on fire anymore? Would you only see one hero, whoever is the most on fire as it's a rating? Would you only see DPS heroes? There's just too many moving parts for it to be practical. It's imaginative and interesting, but it's probably not that great for the flow of Overwatch as a game. This brings us to a much larger question. If you were looking at McCree and seeking to improve him, what are the obstacles in your way? Well, first off, let's talk about damage. McCree will always be on a knife's edge of being overpowered and underwhelming. If you straight buffed his damage, he'd perhaps become too dominant, as he'd start to do other heroes' jobs. Would it make him too strong against tanks? Would the Pharah duel become swayed in his favour instead of an actual duel? Would it be fair for McCree to just be able to one-shot a Tracer without flashbanging her first? None of those are good options. What if you made his damage over range better? Well, if you remember, it was a lot better after they nerfed Fan the Hammer. Blizzard actually buffed this, and they thought him too good, as he started to tread on the toes of long-range damage like Widow. So a buff to damage isn't on the table, in any respect. But what actually makes McCree so hard to play in a frantic dive-heavy era. It's simple, he's a glass cannon. He can't really move. He gets one short roll and a flashbang that lasts less than a second. If you're going to have a McCree in your comp, you have to protect him and set him up. There's an idea floating around the community that McCree's roll should reset like Genji's Swift Strike on elimination of an opponent. I actually love that idea. It's not a massive change, but the roll does also auto-reload his gun. I feel like this could make the difference in a close duel or successive duels. Say for instance you're playing against double flanker, you use the roll to evade Genji's Swift Strike then eliminate him, you'd get it back instantly for when the tracer came zipping in or vice versa. The extra ammo allowing you to keep shooting could have massive clutch value. That's the problem with running McCree in a lot of contexts at the moment. It can be hard to live beyond one duel. Say a team plays Genji, Winston, Tracer and Pharah against you. McCree is an answer to 3 of those, but not 3 at the same time. But if you made it just a little bit more viable for him to survive or clutch out eliminations, maybe a true mechanical god could make it work, because that's what that change would do. Only really good players would be able to take advantage of that. The only issue that people might pick up on is that he'd be able to fan the hammer potentially much more often. McCree has never been about raw volume of damage, unless we go back to the old tank killer McCree from early in the game's life cycle. Even if he potentially could fan the hammer more often, it wouldn't be very useful against triple DPS. You need the crispy one-taps for that. There's also the option of making his flashbang more reliable. I'm not talking about doubling its radius or making it antibiotic nade good, just more reliable. Currently it lasts 0.9 seconds, which any McCree player can tell you isn't very long, especially in a frantic fight where people are moving so swiftly and in many directions. If it were to be extended in duration just a fraction to allow that jumping Genji to land, it would be a much more effective tool. The other option is removing all the heroes' head bobble when they get stunned. Zarya is almost comically bad as a specific example. Hit her with a flashbang and it looks like she's taking time out to listen to Slipknot on her iPod, giving it a cheeky little headbang in the middle of a match. Either of those or both could work. Its cooldown is 10 seconds, longer than some questionable abilities from other heroes. Helix Rocket anyone? In conclusion, the truth is that McCree is not weak. He's just been made more niche in the current meta because of how movement-based comps and heroes have risen to the top. I do see some merit in improving his ability to shoot his way out of trouble with the roll reset, as that's what a glass cannon is supposed to be able to do. If you have the skill to access that damage, you could actually make it work. Unfortunately, the perception of his weakness is unlikely to change. In fact, if left untouched, it will probably take some more meta changes around McCree to make people view him differently again, despite the fact that he's been capable of deleting things since the game's release. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please don't forget to leave a rating. If you never want to miss one of our videos again, click the bell icon next to the subscribe button on our channel to join the notification squad. You'll be in good company. Please check out our Discord, where you can join one of the biggest Discord communities for Overwatch out there. If you want to see us tilt live for your enjoyment, please check out our Twitch channel, which will be linked in the description. Also, finally, please follow the Your Overwatch Twitter. It's where you can find updates about new videos and streams. I've been Eddie the Chump, and until next time.